let's try again. Any other check-ins, any check-ins at all for tonight's weekly net? ZS6 OPS standing by. Okay, 1903. Let's see if anybody is out there for tonight's weekly net. ZS6 OPS is standing by. Okay, second last call for check-ins. Quiet night tonight. It's fun. I'll do it for the benefit of the listeners. But anyway, anybody else out there? ZS6 OPS standing by. Okay, last call for check-ins. ZS6 OPS standing by. All right, let's check and see if anybody's out on Hotel 2. This is Echo 1 standing by. Give me a call sign quickly and I'll just make a note of it here. Okay, good stuff. Thanks, 1003. Anybody else out there before I start? We're going to start in about 5 seconds. Okay, thanks, 1008. I hope all is well after your emergency. Any other check-ins quickly? Echo 1 standing by. Yeah, I had nothing from 1010, but the call sign came up. Not a problem. I'm going to get started. Let me do my heavy-duty, sophisticated microphone Kia technique here, which is a rather big elastic band. There we go. Good evening, everybody. It is now 19:05. I think it's time for me to get started with the weekly net. So on that note, I'm going to say greetings to one and all. And welcome to this week's net. Those wishing to join this net using Zoom may do so. Zoom is open. And if you do not have the Zoom link, please contact me on WhatsApp 082-859-2684, and I will send you the link with the greatest of pleasure. So today is Sunday, 30 July 2023, and the time is 19:05. We begin the weekly net with the radio amateur check-ins on the Rudderpoort repeater. For about 5 minutes before proceeding. This net is broadcast every Sunday evening starting at 1900 and is broadcast for the benefit of radio amateurs, disaster relief cert volunteers, and members of the general public. This net is therefore open to all interested parties. Everyone is welcome to participate using either amateur radio, Zoom, or both. I'd also like to remind all amateur radio operators who have not checked in that you do not need to be a member of any group or club to check in or to use the repeater or any of the amateur radio bands. All that is required from you is that you have a valid amateur radio license issued by ECRN, which automatically grants you the right to use any of the amateur radio bands at any time. There is absolutely no need to ask for or be granted permission from anyone to use the repeaters or any of the amateur radio bands. I'd also like to encourage all listeners and participants to share the Weekly Net Zoom link with everyone they know throughout South Africa. Doing so will help us grow the Weekly Net and will contribute to disseminating the information as far and wide as possible. Okay, ZS6 OPS returning after clearing the timeout timer. Let's have a look at the weekly COVID-19 figures. And just a reminder yet again that all of the tracking sites have closed down, and I can only therefore rely on the information provided by the World Health Organization. Globally, our figures are now standing at 768,560,727 cases. And that's as at 8:15 on the 26th of July, compared to last week's 768,237,000. This week we see a slight increase on the week-on-week numbers. We're standing at 322,939 new cases being reported in the last 7 days, whereas we were at 264,827 in the previous week, so approximately 50,000 increase. The global death toll now stands at 6,952,522, compared to last week 6,951,000. This week saw an additional 845 deaths worldwide. And as I've said before, this figure has definitely been coming down, and hopefully we will get to a point where we don't need to report on COVID. Although I must just remind everybody at this point, while I'm on the subject of COVID, that COVID is still rampant and it is still active within our communities. Just within the Constantia Kloof and surrounds area within the last 7 to 10 days, I am aware of one case that has been positively diagnosed as having COVID. So I don't think that it's, gone. You're still at risk, etc., especially if you go into the shopping centers and you don't do all the other good things about sanitizing and keeping your distance. And, well, I think if you walked in with a mask today, they might in actual fact wonder what in the world's going on or do worse. Right, let's clear the timeout timer. ZS6 OPS returning. So Mpox has now been reported at 88,600 cases globally as at the 24th of July, compared to the 88,503 of the previous week. Even there, we see a much lower number this week than we did in the previous week. This week, 97. The previous week, 215 cases. So that's quite a significant drop. With regards to the cholera at this stage, I'm actually wondering if it's even worth reporting on the cholera. We're getting nothing out of the National Department of Health. We're getting nothing out of the National Institute of Communicable Diseases. However, the last figures that were reported were 166 cases with 32 deaths. So I don't know if it's worth continuing. And from next week, I'm probably going to dump it and try and find some other material for the Weekly Net. Mumps, on the other hand, same thing, no further updates. We're currently still at 580 cases being reported, and again, nothing coming out of the authorities, as is the case with diphtheria, still sitting at 2 cases. Measles, on the other hand, is still an interesting one as far as I'm concerned, because I know that whoever is compiling this weekly report definitely passed maths with a 95% pass rate, because they know categorically that when you put a 1 and a nothing and a nothing and a nothing across one line, you get a total of 10. And then on the next line, when there's absolutely nothing in it, you get a total of 2. So rather confusing when I'm looking at the statistics for measles. However, to sort of read between the lines, as at the 28th of July, 2023, South Africa has 1,118 cases or so. I think next week it'll be a different number, because last week it was at 118,000. 1,118. And we actually did have an increase and modification to the figures of the previous week in any event. So let me confuse you, just to remind you, Limpopo is still leading the pack with measles, 511, so no change in the previous week. 217 for the Northwest, no change from the previous week. Gauteng, 188 cases, no change from the previous week. However, this week the tabular form did in actual fact state that there was one case in Gauteng. So I'm trying to figure out how we got that one right. Let's clear out this time our timer. Okay, Jose, ZS6 OPS, and that's old Papa Smurf. Definitely not old pot stirrer. Back at the microphone. This week I've got nothing to report on the world news. The Constantia Kloof group kept me so busy today. I had no time to do any research on that. Although, if anybody would like to have any specific information regarding the Protection of Personal Information Act, I must admit I was able to scratch my head and really pull up various factors without being able to actually quote the particular sections. But fortunately, we had some rather pleasant residents who drew my attention to Section 6 in particular. So on that basis, I have got absolutely nothing else that I would like to add, except to say that in closing, I'd like to encourage every person who is listening to my broadcast tonight to register as a disaster relief CERT volunteer and to prepare and train to assist local communities when a disaster strikes. And of course, radio amateurs who have not yet checked in, I'm going to give you an opportunity to give me your call sign. Let me get you on the list. So please go ahead. ZS6 OPS is standing by. Okay, nothing else heard. On that note, I'd like to thank all of those who checked in this week, as well as those who have joined via Zoom, and of course those that are monitoring via my other network here. On that note, as I said earlier, the COVID-19 pandemic is still ongoing and is still infecting thousands weekly. So please remember to physically distance yourself and to wear a mask to protect others, especially the elderly who could lose their lives if infected with COVID-19. Remember that this is it is always best in any event to wash your hands on a regular basis, and of course doing so will assist in stopping the spread of other respiratory diseases as well. So for the week moving forward, be safe, be prepared, and of course be happy. This is ZS6 OPS now releasing the Roodepoort repeater for general use and releasing Hotel 2 as Echo 1, who will be monitoring. Good night all. All right, you miserable bunch on Hotel 2. Good night. Bye-bye. This is Echo 1 out.